History of the Elamites. The Elamites spoke the Malinki Bambara language and belonged to the Kunte clan. Henry Rawlinson used the book of Genesis to find the identity of the Mesopotamians. He made it clear that the original inhabitants of Babylonia were represented by the name Nimrod and were represented by the family of Ham, Cushites, Egyptians, and etc. This name came from the popularity among these people of hunting the leopard, the Nimri, and as noted in earlier, Egyptian and Nubian rulers always associated leopard spots with royalty, just as Siva is associated with the feline. As a result, Rawlinson used an African language, Gala, to decipher the cuneiform writing. The Sumerians and Elamites came from Africa. Like the founders of the Indus Valley Civilization, this is why the Elamites and Sumerian languages are closely related to African and Dravidian languages. The Cushites, when they migrated from Middle Africa to Asia, continued to call themselves Cushites. This is most evident in place names and the names of gods. The Kassites, chief rulers of Iran, occupied the central part of the Zagros Mountains. The Kassite god was called Kashu, which was also the name of the people. The KSH name element is also found in India. For example, Kishtakinpai was the name applied to an ancient Dravidian kingdom in South India, and it should be remembered that the kings of Sumer were often referred to as the kings of Kush. The major Kushite tribe in Central Asia was called Kushana. The Kushana of China was styled Tai Yuekti, or the Great Lunar Race. Among the salt swamp, there was a state called Kushik of Tibet. The city of Kaisan was situated in the direction of Kushan, which was located in the western part of the Gansu province of China. In other words, you see that there's many place names in Asia that has the KSH, Kush, element. The most important Kushite colony in Iran was ancient Elam. The Elamites called their country Khatam or Khatam. The capital of Khatam was called Susa. Susa was also called Kuzak by the Aryans, Nime by the people of Sumer, and Kushi by the Elamites in the Akkadian inscriptions. The Elamites were called Gizbam, the land of the bow. But isn't it interesting that the Elamites made sure to call themselves Kushi? The ancient Chinese or Bak tribesmen, which dominate China today, called the Elamites Kashti. Moreover, in the Bible of the book of Jeremiah, we read, Bo of Elam. It is interesting to note that both Kautamti and Kashti as the name for Elam agrees with Taseti, the ancient name of Nubia located in the Meroitic Sudan. The Elamites later conquered Sumer. They call this line of kings the kings of Kish. This term has affinity to the term Kush that was given to the Kerma dynasty, founded by the Sigru people of Kush. It is interesting to note that the Elamite language is closely related to African languages, including Egyptian and the Dravidian languages of India. The ancients were sure the Kushites had founded the Elamite civilization. According to Strabo, the Roman geographer, the first Elamite colony of Susa was founded by Tithonus, a king of Cush, and father of Memnon. Strabo in Book 15, Chapter 3, 728 wrote that, in fact, and I quote, it is claimed that Susa was founded by Tithonus, Memnon's father, and that his citadel bore the name Memnonium. The Susians were also called Scythians, and Aeschylus called Memnon's mother Scythia. Unquote. The most important Kushite colony in Iran was Elam. The Elamites, like other Africans, practiced the custom of matrilineal descent. The history of Elam is usually divided into three periods: the kings of Awan, the kings of Samashki, and the Sul-Kalma period. For over 300 years, the Elamite kings of Awan ruled Elam and much of Mesopotamia. Much of this period is unknown. During the 3rd millennium BC, the Elamites and Sioux people, a term used for mountain people in the western Zagros, sacked Ur. The Malinki Bambara claim that they are the Sea people. Plural of Sea is Sioux. This suggests that the Sioux were Mandi-speaking people living in Asia at this time. The king of the dynasty of Simaski led to Elamite rule in Sumer. The first king of the Simaski dynasty was Gurnami. In Sumer, the Elamites contributed much to Sumerian civilization. The Elamite kings of Sumer were called the kings of Kish. After the Sumerian king of Kish pushed the Elamites out of Mesopotamia, Elam went into a period of chaos until around 2500 BC, when King Peli became the ruler of Elam. After Peli, there were 6 other Elamite kings until Elam was conquered by Sargon of Akkad. Before the Suqalma period, circa 1900 to 1500 BC, much of what we know about Elam comes from the Akkadian sources. This period is called the Suqalma period because the rulers of Elam were called Suqalma, or Grand Regent. The Elamite title of a king was Sukir. During the Suqalma dynasty, there was a tripart system of rule. The Susa text indicates that there was a senior ruler called the Suqalma, the Grand Regent of Elam, and the Shemaski. He was usually the brother of the Suqalma, and a junior co-regent called Suqal of Susa. This nephew was usually from the maternal side of the king's family. Thus, the Suqal Susa was often called the Husak, sister's son. The first rulers of the Suqalma period was Earbarat, or Iparti. He was followed by Ruhusak Adahushu, the Suqal and magistrate of the people of Susa. He is known mostly for his building of several temples and the election of his justice stela, outlining the laws of Elam. The Elamites of Old Persia were probably descendants of the Mandi people. This is obvious in the language and names of the Elamite kings. I hope you remember the book Roots. The main character was Kunta Kinte. Roots was written by Alex Haley, and he talked about a slave who came to America, and the descendants of these slaves remembered their great-grandfather, who was Kunta Kinte. The name Kunta Kinte is interesting because we have the following ruler during the Suqalma dynasty. His name was Kutur-Nahute, circa 1752 BC, who conquered southern Babylonia. The name Kutur-Nahute would correspond to a popular Mandi name, Kunte, among the Mandi-speaking people of West Africa. The Elamite name Peli is also popular among the Mandi, in the form of Pe. This name was also common among the Olmec people of ancient Mexico. It should also be noted that the Mandi term for people is Si. This corresponds to the word Sioux, used to designate the mountain people of Elam. The Elamite term Sioux would correspond to the Mandi term Si-U. The U is the plural suffix in the Mandi language. By the 2nd millennium BC, a new, more aggressive dynasty appeared in Elam. The kings of this dynasty called themselves Divine Messenger, Father and King, of Susa and Anzan. One of the rulers of this dynasty was Sutruk-Nahunte. Sutruk-Nahunte, like Kutur, invaded Mesopotamia and took Babylon around 1106 BC. After Kutur took Babylon, the Elamites ruled Babylon until Hammurabi defeated the Elamite king Rin-Sin. Later, the Elamites were driven from Lhasa and other Sumerian cities back to the Susiana plains. There is textual evidence supporting the relationship between the founders of Sumer, Elam, and Delmun. Colonel Henry Rollison used textual evidence to determine that a link existed between the Mesopotamians and their ancestors in Africa. Rollison called these people Cushites. There is a positive relationship between crania from Africa and Eurasia. The archaeologists Marcel Augustin Dufont and Hansberry maintained that there was a sub-Saharan strain in Persia. These researchers maintained it was evident that an Ethiopian dynasty ruled Elam, in other words, a black dynasty. From a perusal of his statuary of the royal family and members of the army, you can clearly see that these people were black. Dufont noted that the textual evidence and iconography make it clear that the Elamites were Africans and part of the Kushite Confederation. Dufont made it clear that the Elamites of Susa were sub-Saharan Africans. Marcel Dufont and M. de Quatrefages observed that the craniometrics of the ancient Elamites of Susa indicate they were sub-Saharan Africans or Negroes. Ancient sub-Saharan African skeletons have also been found throughout Mesopotamia. by Tom Seck et al. The craniometric data indicates that continuity existed between the ancient and medieval sub-Saharan Africans in Mesopotamia. There's a story about the ending of the Elamite Empire. This empire was ended by the Assyrians when they took over the land. These Assyrians destroyed the capital Susa, and Elamite just became a country in history. Yes, the Elamites were a great people in Asia. The Elamites were Mandi speakers. They settled Africa. They settled this part of Mesopotamia and took their African culture with them, and left us many great monuments that testify to the greatness of the Elamite Empire.